Go. Welcome everybody. This is the DVMUG Zoom meeting for Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. We have a little bit of news and 4 videos and a regular Q&A and social hour. So we'll start with the first news page. Go forward. These are through news articles. And I'll go to the first one and explain it. So iOS 18.2 and Sequoia 15.2 was scheduled to be released yesterday. Everybody expected it to be released yesterday, and it wasn't. They released another, what they call release candidate, which means it's going to be like that, but they must have found a bug at the last minute or something. So now we think that it should be released on Thursday. Definitely this week. It's going to be here. So our first video is going to be from Gary, and he released his video for Sequoia yesterday, presuming that it was going to come out, and it wasn't. So we're going to watch that anyway, because it's basically the final. So anybody have any questions about that? You can unmute yourself. That's coming. Okay, I found this interesting when I installed some of these new M4 Mac Mini and upgraded to the latest Sequoia. Did the passwords, it popped up and offered, since she had Firefox installed, offered to put the iCloud password extension into Firefox. So I did. There's already been a official Apple iCloud password extension for Chrome. So now you can use in Sequoia and iOS 18, the Passwords app will also work in Firefox and Chrome, just like you do with 1Password and all the rest of them. So that really makes a compelling reason to go ahead and use that. If you're, there's no reason not to. Any comments, questions about that? Okay. Charlie Brown Christmas for free on Apple TV this weekend. Apple TV Plus. So you need an Apple TV or an Apple TV Plus app on your smart TV or Roku. Or I think you can also view it on the web. You can get the information from that link. They do this every year because they bought it. They bought Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, Halloween, and Christmas, and so they usually have a couple days where they give it away. Otherwise, you can, if you're Apple TV Plus user, you can watch it anytime you want. So there you go. Questions, comments? That's all I got for news. Here's our videos. First one's going to be Gary's video for Sequoia, released yesterday. And iPhone mirroring, that's in Sequoia. Apple Intelligence, that's a Sequoia thing. And then the last one's these are all from Gary. So here we go. First one, go. All right. Whoops. Yeah, this is what's new in Sequoia 15.2 by Gary. Here we go.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Let's take a look at what's new in macOS Sequoia 15.2. So macOS Sequoia 15.2 is a pretty minor change in most respects, except we get some new features, and most importantly, some Apple Intelligence features. So previously you could select some text like this, and you could bring up the writing tools a number of different ways. I'm going to use Control-Click and then Writing Tools. Now, here you've got the writing tools like before, and you can make friendly, professional, or concise, but you could do more than that. So let's go to Show Writing Tools to bring up the more comprehensive interface. And notice at the top, there's now a prompt. So you don't have to stick with just these 3 options here. You could actually type something, anything you want, and it will attempt to rewrite the selected text. So for instance, I could just simply type as a poem, and I press return, and it's going to take that text and try to create a poem from it. And you can see it does that. And you could do a variety of different things, but not everything will work. So for instance, if I were to type like as Hemingway, then I press return, and you can see it's not going to do that for me. But if I were to do something more reasonable, like say, with shorter sentences, then it will give me a result for that. It certainly extends things further and gets the Apple Intelligence writing tools more in line with what you could already do in tools like ChatGPT. By the way, if you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MacMost at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Now, another thing that you can do is you can compose text from scratch. So I'm going to bring up the writing tools like before, but now without any text selected. And I'll go here, and I could show writing tools, but there's also a compose option here. Either way, you can get to it, and you can type a prompt. Notice the ChatGPT logo there. This is going to use ChatGPT for this. I could type something I want here. So say I needed to have a paragraph about, how LED screens work. I could simply type that. It'll call to ChatGPT, and it'll give me some text as a result. And I could insert that or copy it. There's a variety of different ways you can use that. You can use it to generate lists. Anything you might normally use a chat AI for, you can just do there just to compose some quick text. Now, that last feature does point out how now ChatGPT is integrated with Apple Intelligence. And in fact, if you go to System Settings and then you look at Apple Intelligence and Siri, you will see down here ChatGPT under Extensions, hinting that we may have more extensions here in the future. ChatGPT is just the first. You can also sign into your account. Now, you also have this little checkbox here for confirm ChatGPT requests. This is because ChatGPT is also integrated with Siri. So let's give that a try with Siri here. And in this case, we're going to get a result that doesn't use ChatGPT. So you can see it just gives you the result and a source there. So you have to get more complex for it to trigger ChatGPT. So here's an example that should work. So you can see there it says working with ChatGPT. So this did trigger it. And here I get a list. And this is indeed from ChatGPT. It even shows on the bottom that it is. And I'm sure this is going to be refined over time. But I was able to, in testing, get answers for just about any question I asked. A lot of them, it just gave me an Apple Intelligence. It looks like that's definitely improved over the last month or so. But also, sometimes it did go to ChatGPT and give me a list like this. Now let's go right to the next big Apple Intelligence feature that was added, and that is Image Playground. So Image Playground is an app. So you launch it just like a regular app like Pages or Keynote or something like that. And it comes up like this, and it asks you to describe an image, and it will try to generate the image for you. So very similar to other AI image generation tools. One of the things it does that is different, though, is it's really tied into your photos. So you can barely see what's here at the bottom. The window for Image Playground is a little bit bigger than what I normally use to record at. But you get the idea here. You've got a prompt, you've got some suggestions, and then you've got this key thing here, person. If I click on that, it's going to go to my photos, and it's going to see what people it recognizes there. So the people part of your photos. In my demo account here, I've just got me. So I'll select me, and it's going to put me there. And then I need to actually choose some other things. I will choose, say, Starry Night, and I will choose a beret. And it's going to combine those concepts and produce an image of me wearing a beret with Starry Night behind. Notice there are dots underneath. It's generating multiple versions of this, and I can flip through them and see these. I could click outside here and come back to these. Let me take away the beret and instead put a beanie, and then it's going to regenerate based on those. I could also generate some things based on my own text down here. So I could add moon to this, and it should add kind of the moon. Now, once you've got this, you can click on the three dots here, and you can copy this image. You can share it. There are also other things you could do. For person, you can also choose appearance, and then create a person from a description here. You can also just type a prompt there and not include a person at all. So I'm going to do a road into the mountains at sunset and press return. And I'm not going to take any of these other suggestions, but I'm going to get a image like this. And note, I can also change the style. I can go between animation or illustration. And this is a good example of something you can generate and then use that, say, in a keynote presentation or as an image in a Pages document, that kind of thing. So I can find something nice to use in that situation. Now let's look at some other changes. If we go into Safari, there's a couple of changes you should note. One of them is if you go to File and then note the import and export options now get a lot more complex. It gives a bit more of a description of what's going on here for importing, what you can import, and also for exporting. If I go to export, I actually get this whole little dialog here, and I can choose what I want. So if I just want to export, say, just bookmarks, I can do that here. I can choose which profiles it's coming from, and I could download them. So this is an interesting new dialog. Another thing you've got is when you're on the start page, like here, bookmark show start page, there's the edit button here, and there are some new backgrounds here that you could apply to the start page right here. In the News app, if you're a subscriber to Apple News, you've got under Puzzles a new puzzle type. Now you've also got Sudoku. So there's a daily Sudoku puzzle, and it works really well, allows you to add notes, has all the features you would expect for a Sudoku puzzle. And yeah, you get a new one to play every day. So Apple continues to build its collection of puzzles here for Apple News Plus subscribers. Now, a tiny new feature that is going to get a lot of attention is the ability to put the weather in the menu bar. So this is something, of course, it's been available in other operating systems forever, and you could do it on a Mac with third-party apps. But now you can actually go into System Settings, and in System Settings under Control Center, the last item down here is under Menu Bar Only, Weather, and you can choose to show in Menu Bar. And when you do that, you get a little weather icon and the temperature. But if you click on it, you get all the details, and it's going to correspond to the locations you've got in the weather app. So your local area weather, and then a forecast here, and then other locations you've got are going to be listed here, a link to open the weather app, but you can also click on these things here and it will take you to the weather app as well. Another improvement is in AirPlay. When you go to AirPlay now, and I'm going to demonstrate using displays, and I'm going to add a display, and it's going to be an AirPlay display. So this is TV that accepts AirPlay. And what will happen here is it'll come up with a new dialog that asks you if you want to mirror your whole display or a window or app. So you could choose that before you start using AirPlay. So that's a really handy feature to have there. Now, another big feature for those that are not in the USA, but in the other English-speaking countries of Australia, the UK, Canada, South Africa, and New Zealand, is that support has been added for the Apple Intelligence features introduced in macOS Sequoia 15.1. When 15.1 came out, they only worked if you were in the USA using US English, but now they're available in those other countries as well. So for people living there, you've got not only these new features, but a lot of the new features that the US users have had for a month or so. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you
Okay, that's probably just scratching the surface of what's new. Comments, questions? I'm sure some of these things are going to work, if not all of them, in iOS also.
I find it just mind-boggling how the writing tools are so effective.
The next video I got is a whole video from Gary about summarizing, I believe.
I'm just telling you, I'm glad I don't teach English in college anymore because I would be getting these absolutely AI created essays and it would be impossible.
Well, supposedly there's AI that will detect AI written
Listen, I can
text.
detect AI because I can tell students don't write
Yes,
that.
an AI detector. Okay, shall we move on? Anything else? Okay, we'll go for the next one. Yeah. Oh, no, I think I got it out of sequence. Okay, well, we'll go with this one. I think I might got them out of sequence. Okay.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Let's take a look at using iPhone mirroring on your Mac. So one of the big new features that's part of macOS Sequoia and iOS 18 is the ability to mirror your iPhone screen on your Mac. Not just see the screen, but actually interact with it using your mouse and trackpad and the keyboard on your Mac. The reasons you may want to do this is so you can keep your iPhone in your pocket or in your bag, or better yet, on a charging stand, and then access it on your Mac screen while you're doing other things on your Mac. That way, if there's an app that only works on the iPhone, you can actually use it on your Mac. It's likely you can probably type faster on your Mac's keyboard anyway. And you can interact with the apps on your iPhone just like they were apps on your Mac. In other words, dragging and dropping things to them, copying and pasting, and so on. And before trying to use this, you should be aware of the requirements. It needs a Mac running macOS Sequoia and also an iPhone running iOS 18. So pretty recent hardware. The Mac has to have either an Apple Silicon chip, so M1 or newer, or if it's an Intel chip, it's got to have the T2 security chip. You should be using the same Apple account on both devices, and you should have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth turned on for them, although they don't need to be on the same Wi-Fi network. Now, you can't use some things while using iPhone mirroring. For instance, you cannot have your personal hotspot turned on your iPhone. You also can't have AirPlay or Sidecar or be using an Apple Vision Pro. All of those things are using the same technology to mirror either your Mac screen or some other screen to or from your Mac. So you can't be doing two screen mirroring things at the same time. And another big one is that this doesn't work in the European Union. Apparently this is because of the European Union regulations. Apple's afraid that they would have to make this available to go from Mac to Android, or to allow iPhones to also be mirrored on other types of computers. So for now, it's not available in the EU. You can go to this webpage for a full list of all of the requirements and some troubleshooting tips if it's still not working for you. If it's not working, you should make sure, of course, that your iPhone is locked and nearby, and also think about other software you may have running on both devices. Like, do you have a VPN? Do you have some sort of security software or firewall turned on? All those things may or may not get in the way of using iPhone mirroring. So I've got my iPhone here nearby and locked and ready to go. Now, to use this, you need to use the iPhone mirroring app that's on your Mac. So you want to launch that any way that you normally launch apps. You can use Spotlight, you can use Launchpad, you can go to the applications folder, anything you want. I'm going to use Launchpad here, find iPhone mirroring, and launch it. It's going to come up with this introduction screen the first time you use it, and then you can continue. Then it's going to ask you to unlock the iPhone. So I'm going to do that here. And this iPhone, of course, is using the same Apple account. So it recognizes and connects, and I just allow, and it says it's ready for use. So I'll get started. Now it's going to say iPhone mirroring is locked. Now I want to enter my login. This is my Mac login, the same one I used to unlock my Mac account. And then return, and it will show connecting, and then there I go. I'm connected and I see the iPhone screen. Now the iPhone itself won't show anything. It'll be a blank screen because the iPhone's got to be locked during this. By the way, if you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MacMost at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Now to use your iPhone, you would of course use your Mac's pointer with your mouse or trackpad, and you can click on things instead of tapping on your iPhone screen. So for instance, if I want to use an app here, I just click on the app and it will launch the app, just like if I tapped on the screen on the iPhone itself. And you can continue to tap on things like that. You can navigate around just like you're using your finger on the iPhone. You can also swipe. So on a trackpad, you use two fingers to swipe. On an Apple Magic Mouse, you would use one finger and swipe on the top, and you could swipe, and it's just like swiping on the screen of the iPhone. To navigate around, here are some tips. You've got the home bar at the bottom. You don't need to actually swipe up with it. You can just click it and it will work to go back home. But you also have some buttons here in the toolbar of the window. Now you don't see the toolbar unless you actually move your pointer over the top like that, then it appears. You've got a home button there, and you also have an app switcher button. So you can click on that to go to the app switcher, click on this one to go home. So you have those ways of doing it, but you also have in the view menu, keyboard shortcuts. Command 1 for home screen, Command 2 for the app switcher, and Command 3 will take you to Spotlight. You may also notice in the view menu, you've got larger, smaller, and actual size. So you can change the size to one of these three. So for instance, I can go smaller and have a smaller window there, and I can go back to actual size. And you saw there were keyboard shortcuts for that as well. Now you have some settings as well. If you go to iPhone mirroring settings, you look here, you've got how often you need to enter in your password. So every time you start iPhone mirroring here, you'd be asked to enter in your Mac account ID, just like you're unlocking your Mac. But if you prefer, you can set it to automatically authenticate, so you're asked that less. If you're using Touch ID on a keyboard that has that, then it's really less of a problem. You also have a button here if you want to reset everything. This would disconnect your iPhone and you just have to set it up again from scratch. There's some settings on your iPhone as well. If we go into settings here and we go to general and then look for AirPlay and continuity, you'll see iPhone mirroring here. And it lists all the Macs where you have this set up. So you can edit here and you can remove one of these even if you're not actually using that Mac at the moment. Also, if you go to system settings on your Mac and then you go to notifications, note you can allow notifications from iPhone. And I can do this independent of the iPhone mirroring feature. But it's nice to be able to get these iPhone notifications on your Mac. It's kind of a related feature. Now, one of the ways that you can interact between the iPhone mirroring window and other windows on your Mac is to copy and paste. So for instance, I'll go into the Notes app here and I'll create a new note. And I say I am composing something here. Notice I can type on my Mac keyboard and it appears here just fine, which to me is reason enough to be using iPhone mirroring. But you can also just copy and paste. I can copy from this Pages document in a Mac window, just do Command C to copy, go over here to the iPhone window, and I'm going to use Command V to paste, and you can see it pastes here in this note. I could do it the opposite way as well. I can select some text here, and I could go into Pages on my Mac and Command V to paste. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is actually not using iPhone mirroring. This is something you could have done before. It's using Universal Clipboard to do this. iPhone mirroring didn't need to enable this at all. It already was part of using your iPhone and your Mac together. Now you can also drag and drop between the iPhone mirroring window and your Mac apps. This is a new feature in macOS Sequoia 15.1. So make sure you have that if you want to do this. But here I am still in the Notes app here, and I'm going to drag a photo from the Mac Photos app into the iPhone mirroring window here, and it adds it to this note or any other app that I want. And you can do the reverse as well. So now I'm going to drag the image from the Notes app into the Mac window here and drop it into Pages, and it'll add it here to my Pages document. Now there's some interesting notes here about how this all works. One thing is that if you play audio here on your iPhone in iPhone mirroring, it should play through on your Mac. Another is, note that the mic on the iPhone and the camera on the iPhone don't work in this mode. If I go to the camera app here, I just get this message. However, you can actually exit and re-enter iPhone mirroring really quickly. So I'm going to unlock my iPhone right now. Just swipe up and use Face ID, and you can see what happens here. It says iPhone in use. So I can now use my camera, use my microphone, voice memos, whatever it is I need to do. And then all I need to do is lock my iPhone and then click the connect button here, and it should quickly and easily reconnect. Remember, I had it set to ask me for my password each time, but you could change that so that it doesn't, and it just reconnects immediately. Some other notes here. This works in standby mode. That means when you put your iPhone on a charger and it's in horizontal orientation. If your iPhone supports standby mode, it can display a clock, be a clock basically on your desk while you're actually using the iPhone through iPhone mirroring. Another note that Apple has is that some videos may not play in mirroring mode. That's because if an app kind of prevents that, if it's already been set to prevent, say, using AirPlay mirroring or any other kind of like screen recording, then it's not going to work for iPhone mirroring to your Mac as well. So I think iPhone mirroring for some people is probably the big new feature in macOS Sequoia and iOS 18, and they're going to be using it all the time. I've had a lot of people say that they don't see a use for this, and that's okay. This feature may not be for everyone. If you primarily sit at your Mac and have your iPhone put away and don't use your iPhone during that time, then you're probably not going to have a need for iPhone mirroring. This is for people that are used to using both devices at the same time all the time. Now it's going to be a little bit easier to do that thanks to iPhone mirroring. Hope you find this useful. Thanks for watching.
That's pretty clever. Comments, questions? If you're muted,
No.
you can unmute yourself.
I like it. I use it. I have an SE and I use it.
So copying and pasting like he showed between the Notes app on the phone and the and other things on the Mac, how is that different than just doing it into the Notes app on the Mac, which is also on the phone? You don't have to really, since it's all connected by iCloud.
He also said that feature doesn't require iPhone mirroring. That's been around for a while, where you copy your clipboard, it goes to your iOS device and you can paste it in and vice versa.
Now, there are a bunch of people with unmuted mics, by the way. We're getting some like coughing and noise during the video there.
Okay. We got anything else on this video? Want to move on? Hearing nothing, moving on to the next one here. Go. Okay, so this is about Apple Intelligence and summarizing text.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Let's take a look at the Apple Intelligence summarizing tools. So one of the first Apple Intelligence features that we got in macOS 15.1 is the ability to summarize text. This is grouped together with the other writing tools that I've covered before. So for instance, say you're on a web page like this, and there's a section here that you want to summarize. So let's say this section here. You can select it, and with text selected, you can bring up the Apple Intelligence tools. Now in some apps, there's a button in the toolbar, but not here in Safari. Here in Safari, though, you can get to the Apple Intelligence tools in the Edit menu and look for Writing Tools, and they're all right here. You can choose Show Writing Tools to bring up all of the tools, or go directly to one of the tools by choosing one of these options. But you could also get to this by selecting text and then control-clicking, two-finger clicking on a trackpad or right-clicking on a mouse, and then in the context menu, you can also choose Writing Tools. So I'm going to choose Show Writing Tools in this case, and it brings these up. Now, a lot of these are indeed writing tools, tools for you to use when you're writing text and you want to make it more friendly, professional, concise, or just have it proofread. But there's also a group down here of items that's meant for text perhaps that you didn't write, although you certainly could use them for text that you did write. So for instance, I can choose Summary right here, and it's going to summarize the text that's selected. So you can see here, it just summarizes it all into one simpler paragraph. By the way, if you find these videos valuable, you can join the more than 2,000 others that support MacMost at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Now note that if your goal was to summarize the entire web page, you don't necessarily need to select everything on the page and then use that tool. Because in Safari, you've got Apple Intelligence tools right here in the address bar. Click on this little icon to the left, and it should bring up a summary of the article. And that's if it can find text on the page that represents an article. So you can see here, it gives you this concise summary of the entire page there. So if that's what you want, you don't have to go to Writing Tools. You can just get to it here in the Safari address bar. In addition to Safari, you also find summaries in Mail. Sometimes you'll find summaries here on the left in the previews for each message. But you'll also find them if you scroll down and look for the Summarize button at the top of some of your messages. You can click that and it will summarize the entire message like that. Also, if you go into System Settings, note that, of course, you need to have Apple Intelligence turned on in the Apple Intelligence section. But also in Notifications, you have the option to have previews for notifications summarized. And you can set it on a per app basis, which ones get summaries inside of those notification previews. So you might get a long message from somebody, and the notification, instead of showing you just the first few words, would actually summarize the message. Now, outside of the web, you can use this pretty much anywhere you can select text. So here I've got a PDF. It's a report maybe somebody's given you, and it's a rather long, rambling report. If you want to summarize this, you can select all the text. I'm just going to use Command A to do that. And you can find the writing tools in the edit menu or by control clicking. And here I can go to writing tools and summarize and get a summary of this report like that. You can just read it right here, but you can also copy it to the clipboard if you want. Now you may have already noticed there are more tools there than just a basic summary. So let's go back into writing tools here. And I can see here I've got create key points, make a list, and make a table. If you go into show writing tools, you'll see all of those right here as well. So instead of summary here, it might be good to get key points for this. Let's try that. So you can see here it's filled in all of these bullet items here, and it's given you a longer piece of text than the summary, but perhaps it's just as easy to read and it gives you more information while not being much more complex. You can see it's still so much shorter than the full report. Now if you try to use some of these other tools, you're going to get mixed results based on what you have selected. So in this case, if we choose make list here, we'll get a fairly decent list that summarizes the report. So you can see here it's much longer than the key points. It's putting almost everything in there, but it's doing it as a bullet list instead of these paragraphs. So it really depends on your source material as to which one's going to be more useful to you. Now there's another option here called make table. Now it's not going to work for all content. And here it actually tries to come up with some decent content in a table format. So whether or not this works for this kind of report, you're going to have to judge. This is just some example text here, so it's hard to say whether this is any good. But it is interesting as a way to summarize things. Maybe if you enjoy looking at tables more than reading many paragraphs of text, this might work for you. You can use make table in a more obvious way. For instance, here's some text showing somebody's shopping trip. Maybe they dictated this into their phone. You can select all of this and you can pretty much predict what you're going to get if you use make table here. It's going to take the items and the prices and put them into two columns like this. Here's an interesting one. Here's some text here showing the amount of miles driven in a day, but just as regular text. Let's use the writing tools to make this a table. And here it's only going to find the day number and the number of miles. But what if this was a little different? Here, the mode of transportation has changed. So there's actually more data on each line. So now let's use writing tools to make a table from this. And we'll see, yes, it correctly figures out that there should be an activity column and puts the right thing in there. Here's another example. Here's some text, maybe something somebody wrote or dictated or it's from a story or something. It would be interesting to put this in a table. And sure enough, if you choose writing tools and make table, we could see that it does figure out the breed and then a description based on it. So it puts together a little table like this. If we were to instead choose make list, then we'll get a list here based on this. And you could see it breaks it down with the relevant information. It gets that there's more than just the name of a dog breed here. There's actually some more information and puts it in this nice bullet list. Here's another example. Here's some food items and an amount for each one. But the amounts used very different measurements. So let's go and use writing tools here and see if it could put this in a table. And indeed it does. And it lists the quantity in whatever units are provided there. So the secret for using Apple Intelligence right now is the same as the secret for using any large language model artificial intelligence like ChatGPT. Experimentation. You need to experiment and try different things. Everything I showed you in this video, I figured out by just experimenting, by putting different types of information into documents and trying to use the different tools there to see what results were produced. You've got to do the same thing with whatever content you deal with. Whatever you read, whatever reports you may get, whatever things you write, you need to try all of these different tools, see what kind of results are generated right now. If something doesn't produce good results right now, but you think it may be useful, don't forget to try it again in a few months because things are always moving forward. A lot of this is going to be updated in each version of macOS, and we're also going to be getting the ability to use ChatGPT to augment Apple Intelligence. So something that doesn't work now may work great in 6 months. That's exactly what's happened with tools like ChatGPT over the last couple of years. And in the next version of macOS, version 15.2, we're going to get the ability to tie in ChatGPT to this. So you're going to be able to use prompts to actually summarize things. So instead of just a summary, you can ask for something very specific, like explaining something at a certain level or looking for a certain detail in a list. So here's a look at the first summarization tools for Apple Intelligence. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.
There we go. Comments, questions? This is already out. This is going to be enhanced this week, like he said.
I don't know if anybody caught that the summary that he had in there of the Wikipedia, that paragraph about radio, but it had some really bogus stuff in there about radio waves are made by accelerating electrons, which was not in that paragraph at all. It made some stuff up.
As with any Apple Intelligence, I mean, any AI stuff, you got to watch out. If it doesn't know the answer, it just makes it up. Sounds good. If you're reading it, you don't know what's going on. Verify.
So am I wrong, or was he using Apple Intelligence, or was it chatbot GPT?
Well,
No,
in that video, ChatGPT is not available until later this
Oh,
week.
okay.
This is an older video, but he did mention it's coming. Everybody knows what's coming because of the beta. People have been using the beta. Rick's been using it, so he's had access to this stuff that's coming. So is Gary, right?
Yep.
Okay. So, anything else about this so far? This is all about the newer stuff. And the next video is not. The next video, I think, is about things you don't know you can do. There we go.
Hi, this is Gary with MacMost.com. Here are 10 things that a lot of people don't know that you can do on your Mac. So I often include various tips in my tutorials, and often I get comments from people that say that they didn't realize that they could do that particular thing on their Mac. I keep track of these, and here are the ones where I hear that the most. So first, you can copy and paste to move files on your Mac. I hear this a lot from Windows users who do it with a simple Control-C, Control-V. On the Mac, it doesn't appear you can do that at first. You got to know the trick. So you can select a file like this in a folder, and you can use Edit Copy or Command-C to start. Then you go somewhere else, like this. And now if you want to move it here, it doesn't look like you can do it. You go to Edit, and if you paste, it actually will make a copy of the item here. So the original is still in the other folder. Well, all you need to do is hold the Option key, and this changes to Move Item here. So it's not Command-V, it's Option Command-V to move. Now sometimes when you copy text, like this text here on a web page, and then you go to paste it into another app, like Mail or Pages or somewhere else, you'll get all of the formatting with the text. You can see this is bold here, and there's coloring and all of that. It even takes the font and the size. But if you want to paste without that styling, you could do it. Just look in the Edit menu, and you usually see here, Paste and Match Style. This is the equivalent to making the text plain text and then pasting it. So you can see here, there's usually a keyboard shortcut. Often it's Option Shift Command V. Sometimes it's something different, so you want to check depending on the app. And when I paste in here, it retains the style that I was using here in this app, and it gets rid of all the other formatting. By the way, if you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MacMost at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You could read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Now, years ago, a common thing to do when you were working with a document was to use Save As to save a copy out as a different file name and continue working on that file. But years ago, Apple got rid of that. If you go to the File menu, there's no Save As. A substitute for that is Duplicate, and you could certainly use Duplicate to do this, but it works a little differently, leaving both documents open. However, most people don't know that you can simply hold the Option key down, and in almost all apps, Duplicate changes to save as. And you could use the old save as command if you prefer that. I often hear from people that say that it's hard to preview an image in the Finder on the Mac before opening a file. That if they want to find an image, the icon's often too small and it's cumbersome to open up an image, close it, and continue to do that. But you can use Quick Look to quickly preview images. All you need to do is select the image and hit the space bar, and you get this Quick Look window here that gives you a preview. Press the space bar again and it goes away. There's lots of functionality in here, including the ability to resize it, and you don't have to dismiss it. You can select another image and it will show that in the Quick Look window. As a matter of fact, you can use the arrow keys to navigate around and quickly look through a whole bunch of different images. Another option, by the way, is using View and then Show Preview. And then you get a larger preview here on the right side of the Finder window, and you can hide it the same way. Here's one that every time I mention it, there are some people that didn't realize that they could do this on their Mac. You could sign PDFs. If you double click PDF, it opens up in Preview by default, which is on your Mac. You don't need to download additional software. And if there's an area to sign here, you can sign it using the markup tools. So you could click here. You could also use this form filling toolbar as well. Both of them have this little signature button here. Click that and you can create a new signature or use one you've already created. Then you click there and it puts your signature there. You can move it to where you want, resize it, and place it. And then you can save this and then send it along to whoever wanted the signature. You could also, of course, fill out the form by clicking on fields that are there. And if the field for some reason isn't there, if there's no way to fill it in, you could still use markup tools. Click here to add text and then resize this text to make it the appropriate size and color and place it where you want. If you need to often type the same thing over and over again, you can make a shortcut for it. So let's say you need to type this and you're sick and tired of having to type this 2 or 3 times a day. So I'm going to copy it here and then go to System Settings and then look for Keyboard on the left. Then look for the button called Text Replacements. And here you could add text replacements to replace something you type with something else. So I'm going to click the plus button to add something. It's useful to always use something you would never accidentally type. So for instance, I'm going to do exclamation point and later. And then with, you could type anything you want here or paste in that text that I had before. Click add. And now if I want to type this, I don't need to type the whole thing out. I just type the replacement and then either space or return, and it inserts the entire thing. You could put in tons of text in the with area or just something simple like a quick emoji, and then you just type this to get that emoji instead of having to find it each time. Many people don't realize that there's a batch rename tool built into the Finder. You're not going to find it if you search through the menus looking for batch rename. Instead, select all of the files that you want to rename. I use Command A to select everything here, and then go to File Rename, which is what you would use to rename a single file. But with multiple files selected, you get this whole tool here. You can replace text in all of the file names. You can add text before or after all the file names, and you can format. So you could use something like the name and date, and you can specify the name here, or the name and counter, name and index. So you could do something like this, and let's have numbers start at 100, and maybe the word photo with a space like that. You can rename everything like that. And if the results aren't what you want, you can always use Edit Undo to change them all back as long as you do it right afterwards. So you probably know that you can use an emoji character by using Control Command and space to bring up the emoji and special character viewer. You could also use FN and E to bring that up. If you've got a word here that triggers an emoji like this, for instance, using these will actually bring up this first, allowing you to choose an emoji based on that last word. But you can simply click here to go to the full view. Now I'm amazed by how many people know that you can do this, but then they're browsing for their emoji or special character. Instead, use search here. You can search for a term and it will narrow things down or get to the specific one that you want. Sometimes you have to try various different terms. Like for instance, smile will produce different results than happy. And this works for more than just emoji characters. For instance, you need an arrow, search for arrows, and it comes up with all sorts of different arrow characters that you can use. If you want to control exactly what's shown here, click here and then use this button that's at the end of this list at the bottom. And then you go into the character viewer. Now in character viewer, you can customize exactly which characters are available. So you can turn on as many as you want. To get back to the emoji and special character viewer, click the same button here. Now it's at the top right and it goes back into this mode. So the next time you bring it up, you're back to using it like this. One thing that's been around for a long time, but some people still don't know about it, is hot corners. It's a good alternative to keyboard shortcuts and gestures. Go to the Apple menu and then System Settings, then go to Desktop and Dock. And at the bottom, it's a button called Hot Corners. Now you can assign a special command to any corner of your screen. So let's use the top right corner. You could set it to any one of these, like Activate Mission Control or a Launchpad or Lock the Screen, which is very useful. I'll set it to Launchpad, and now when I move my pointer to the top right corner, it brings up Launchpad. If you find you trigger it too easily, you can actually assign one of these while holding a modifier key like the Command, Option, Control, or Shift key. And when you do that, you can see it changes to Command Launchpad. Now it won't work by itself. I have to hold the Command key down and move to the top right corner to trigger it. And finally, I'll end with what might be the best one of them all, Universal Clipboard. If you've got a Mac and say an iPhone or an iPad or a second Mac, you can copy and paste between all your devices effortlessly. It just works. There are some requirements, so you may want to check those out if it's not working for you. But for instance, I'm going to copy some text here on my iPhone, and then I'm going to go on my Mac and paste. And you'll see it pastes exactly what I copied, and it works the other way as well. It works with images as well. So here I'm going to copy a photo on my iPhone, and then I'm going to paste here on my Mac, and you can see it pastes that image. I don't have to mess with transferring the file or anything like that. Just copy and paste from one to the other. So these are not only things that people are often surprised that they can do on their Mac, but they're all also very useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up.
Okay. That's the last video we got. Comments, questions? Move
I
on.
have to admit, I didn't know a few of those things. So
Yeah,
I love the new system.
good.
Yeah, that's all. Most of the stuff works going way back. Some of it.
I use that phone mirroring thing over at the senior center, and it is just so slick. You just switch back and forth, no connections, nothing. Just works.
it's all becoming magic.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like-
Remember when we first wanted to do an iPhone SIG? We had
Mhm.
all these hocus pocus to get even anything out of the iPhone up to the projector to see what was going on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will end the screen share, stop sharing. And any comments or questions about any of the videos, or we'll move on to general Q&A? I'm hearing none. DVMUG members who are watching this on YouTube can get the link to the general Q&A on the BBS, and we'll see you there.